Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. That's Megan, that's Eric, I'm Rudo. We're here in Studio B to talk a little bit of value today. A couple weeks ago, if you were watching, we did the middle six value, which we're doing top line today. And I think value is an interesting conversation in general with the top line because you see these players get paid a lot of money at the top of lineups. And while it doesn't always necessarily translate directly to an obscene amount of points, it's hard to make the argument that they're not worth it, right? So, I don't know. Everyone's got to form their own opinion to a certain extent, but we're going to see the whole range of top lines and getting paid or not getting paid through today's show. We have all teams from the Central Division, and then we have a couple of extra teams as well to take a look at. So I wanted to start at the bottom of the Central so we can start with Chicago, mostly because I think they're a pretty significant outlier in this list. You have Taylor Hall, who's been certainly a top six guy for pretty much his entire career. But then you have Connor Bedard coming in. I'm throwing him on the top line right away. It certainly looks that's like what Chicago wants to do. And that last spot, I put Anthony Ciu there. That could end up being Reichel's spot as the season goes on. But a pretty big number of question marks on this top line for Chicago. Bedard, obviously, people are expecting good things. But Taylor Hall, not getting any younger, has struggled to stay healthy over the last handful of years. And then Anthony Ciu, kind of the same thing. A lot of injuries. Probably isn't really a top line player, but I'll leave it to you guys. Do you think on a Chicago team that's not expected to be very good, can this top line be flashy?
I mean, Connor Bedard certainly carries a lot of that expectation.
For sure.
Taylor Hall has some of that experience, but I think that his last couple of stints, they've been good too. But I don't know if they've been top line good is where I'm going with this. I think they've been top six potential, and so that's a lot of pressure to carry on his shoulders to drive the top of the lineup in Chicago, because you can't fully expect Connor Bedard to take on that much responsibility. And this is where I think this conversation branches out into a top six conversation beyond just the top line, because I think that there are players that are penciled in for the second line on each of these teams that are likely to see top line minutes, including in Colorado.
Yeah.
And I think that's true of Chicago especially. There's probably going to be a bit of a revolving carousel of players that get optioned within the top six, just because there is a lot of uncertainty surrounding how they're going to utilize some of these players within their forward group. Definitely
a fair argument. And to be clear, on a couple of these, I just have to pick someone who's going to play on the top line. For the Avs, look, I put Mikko on their top line because he scored 100 points last year. He's making a $9.25 million. Mechanically, he might end up playing on a second line, but you would consider him a top line player in the NHL. So that's where I'm at with it.
To go back to Chicago there.
Yeah.
How can I say that? Like, you look at that graphic there, you're like, well, again, this is not
great.
A Stanley Cup championship.
It's not great. Yeah.
They're not winning the Stanley Cup. I mean, if you're going to bet on something, like, you can bet they're not going to win the Stanley Cup. And I'm not, bashing them. I'm saying that, hey, listen, they stripped the team down, and now they're rebuilding. And if you look at Connor Bedard, then people might have false expectations next year. He's going to be an unbelievable player. We all know that. And if you compare him to his peers, that's what you got to do all the time, right? At that age, where is he at compared to everybody else? And he's going to be a superstar. But how's he going to fare in his first year? I don't know. Go back to Sidney Crosby, his first year. I mean, there's, again, and if they see you, he probably not a first line player and a cup contending team. You know what I mean? And I know that's what you put there, and I agree with you. It could be interchangeable.
Just is what it is.
Not first-line players, not first-line materials, but a team that's going to go in there with no pressure. When you play with no pressure, like I said, go back to Crosby his first year. I mean, I thought he fared pretty well with some bad players. Again, I shouldn't say bad players. Sorry. Marginal players.
I'll call them bad if you don't want to.
That's fine. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, you play in the NHL, you find player. I'm not top-line players, right?
Better at NHL than I'll be at anything in my life.
That's
for
you
sure,
know what I'm saying. I don't like to say that, but they're not first-line players. And what happened, and we talked about it yesterday, that Crosby made them better, right? He did. Mario Lemieux made Warren Young score 50 goals back then. You never saw Warren Young play ever in the NHL ever again after that because he signed that big deal in Detroit. So it's the same thing. What happens is guys can get opportunities like this, and what happens is they probably price themselves out if they score. Again, if the season goes, and all of a sudden he scores 40, and next thing you know, they're like, "Oh man," and then you got to give him the money. So, but Bedard's he's gonna find a way, and I agree. Taylor Hall is more. He's not a driver. He does not drive a line. He's a companion, right? That's what he is, and I like him. I do, but somewhere somehow I think. He's there. He chose to go there, right? And there's going to be not a lot of pressure there this year. And I'm a big Luke Richardson fan. I think Coach, he's outstanding. He's a good human being. This is a guy that played hard, played the right way, has done all that he has to do in coaching and assistant coach and minors. And I have a lot of respect for him. These guys are going to learn from a great, respected veteran that Richardson was, but. So that right there, is a lineup that, I mean, who knows? Like I said, it might be value in there. Obviously, if you look at the numbers, they're not very high because Bedard's at 0 points last year.
Knocks the numbers down.
Exactly. And then obviously his cap hit's not that big. And, who knows? It might be value for fantasy. I don't think it's going to be value for winning a Stanley Cup, right?
No. And look, part of Chicago's problem, we're not going to get into it fully today, but they're paying their fourth line as much as they're paying their top line.
And that's surrounding him, right? They want to surround Bedard the right way, and Nicky Foligno and guys like that they're awesome, and but it's a lot of money. You're right, it's a lot of money, and what is it, Corey Perry and
Perry Foligno,
same, right? Again, you want your young guy to learn from some of the best, and I tell you one thing, I'll vouch for Nick Foligno because I know him, and that's. The Foligno family, like you're not going to learn better from those people are outstanding. And Nicky is going to be a great mentor for Connor Bedard for sure.
Can he not learn from Corey Perry? Can we? Does the league really need the next Corey Perry? I don't know about that. All right, we can move on. I really there's not a ton to talk about with Chicago. I think Arizona in a more interesting place. You're not going to see the ridiculous high end talent on this roster, and the big question. Is that Barrett Hayton spot, the top line center spot. Keller's been there. He's proven himself to be a legit quality guy. Schmaltz has been an effective top 6 player, but, has to stay healthy at times. And then I put Barrett Hayton on here because I just don't know what to expect. What is Arizona going to do with Logan Cooley? Are they going to throw him into the fire the way I expect Chicago to do with Bedard? Maybe. But Hayton had a decent last year, had a good breakout. Is this top line, top 3 guys, good enough to compete for a playoff spot this year?
I'm going to say no. I'll jump in first. Okay, I'm going to say no. Clayton Keller's an outstanding player. I'm a big Nick Schmaltz fan. You're right. When he stays healthy, he's never been healthy. Knock on wood for him. I don't think that is a playoff team. I don't think that for many reasons. I just feel that, first of all, they've never done it. They've never been in the playoffs. And I know it's an argument you can talk about all the time. Oh, he's never done it. Well, I mean, there's a guy that's pretty good. Eichel last year never done it in the playoffs.
Went straight to the top of the thing.
I mean, Jerome McGinley back then, never made a play, and then he goes all the way to Game 7 against Tampa. So, you got that knock until you do it in the playoffs, and I get that. It is a different animal. It's a different game. But a guy like Keller still hasn't done it when it counts. And when I say when it counts, for me is first 20 games of the season, first 25 games of the season.
Everybody's feeling. Yeah.
You're feeling it. You got to turn over the blue line. It's like last 25 games of the season. I'm going back to the Edmonton Oilers back then. They used to pad their stats their last 25, 30 games of the season. All those guys. It's easy to play. You have no pressure. When you lose the game, it doesn't matter. So you play loose, and those guys are so skilled. I mean, Clayton Keller is one of the most skilled guys in the NHL. You can make plays. You'll try stuff that sometimes you don't try.
Sure.
And then So I think it's important to see how these guys, at some point you have to. This is not your first year, your second year. So him and Schmaltz have to go somewhere else. And then Hayton, a guy like that, which, I mean, it was a high pick, you know what I mean? Like
Too high.
Too high, you know. I mean, I saw him play a lot in the minors, and I really didn't know how to describe it. I didn't know what this guy was, and I have to give him credit. Last year, found himself like a little bit of a niche with that team, and then as a fit with Keller somehow. It's always about a fit. Sometimes you can put two great players together. They don't work well together. They don't mesh well. It's like a marriage. It's like anything else.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Doesn't mean you're not a good person. It doesn't work. But it finds like, I think they got some chemistry on and off the ice, those two. And then, again, I mean, that's my answer. I don't know what Megan's going to say. For me, that's not a playoff team. Would you get some value again on fantasy? Probably. I would say yes,
I agree with you. And it's interesting because I actually really like the direction that Arizona is headed. And in looking beyond just the top line, I think that's why I like the direction that they're headed with Matias Michelli, is can he repeat the success of the season that he had? I think Jason Zucker is a great addition to this team coming off a 48-point season. That's another player I think is going to be somewhere in middle six, potentially even second line mainstay conversation, but for how long, right? It is that 1-year contract for Zucker, so I don't know that he's a part of the future for Arizona, but with the promise of a young goaltender in Vejmelka, and can Logan Cooley rise to the occasion in his debut NHL season, there's a lot of maybes at this time of year for a lot of teams, again, including Colorado, that if Logan Cooley has a terrific rookie season, there's a possibility there. But what's going to make this interesting, and why I'm still a no, like Eric said, is who they would be competing with for the wild card spot. And we're going to be evaluating some of those teams, too, that are direct competition for Arizona. And that's where I think it gets tricky, is those teams have similar maybes on their team that could also help to lift them to that wild card spot. So I really like where Arizona is headed. I think Schmaltz is a terrific two-way player that brings so much value to that top line beyond just production, because this graphic, it is a very simple overview of value, right? It's like
not,
dollar
we're
per
not diving
point.
in deep here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you look at it more closely, that is where the value of Schmaltz is especially found. And then the other thing I'm curious to see is there has been a lot of questions surrounding Clayton Keller and his future in Arizona. Like, is he happy there? And I think this is going to be a really important season for the future of the team and what direction they decide to head. Even if they don't necessarily secure that spot, though, I think it would go a long way in securing a home arena down the line, like an official place to play. I think Logan Cooley making the decision to leave college to play also is very revealing, that there is some hope surrounding where Arizona is headed. And so for that reason, I hope that it also boosts Keller's optimism surrounding the future of the Coyotes. Overall, not sure this is the year for them to get into the playoffs, but excited for where they're going.
Well, and you can see it with the investment level. Just shy of $15 million is significantly on the lower end of the teams that we're going to look at today. It's not Chicago levels, who outside of Bedard is just straight up not trying to win this year. But it's not a full blown, we're going for it level of investment. So you look at that and you say, hey, as they continue to progress, if they're moving in the right direction, they can spend a little bit more money. They can go out and get additional pieces to add around someone like a Keller, that maybe it bumps Nick Schmaltz down to a second line role in the future if that's what they feel they need to do. And it's always hard to approximate value and what the correct move is and things like that, because as I kind of said off the top of the show, Nathan MacKinnon is priceless. You could pay him a max contract and he'd be worth every penny. But you can't make the wrong decisions when it comes to those guys. And Arizona still has those decisions open. They haven't backed themselves into a corner, if anything. So they have to make the right decisions, but you're starting to see a path to where if they make a right decision or two, if Cooley works out for them, all of a sudden they're pretty close.
I mean, they are a value. They have to be with their situation. They have to be, and I think Armstrong's done a good job. And like you said, they're trying to find some value guys, and Zucker or Kerfoot or that they're trying to add to their. At some point, you have to take a step. Right? You know what I mean? You can't just be, we're rebuilding, and we strip this off. At some point, you have to take a step. looks like, they signed Armstrong to a new deal, right? Their GM.
Yep.
They signed
Through 28,
their head coach to a new deal, and then they're trying to get some continuity, and they're trying to get to that next step by adding those veterans now, to the Kellers of the world and everything, and I think they're trying to, see where it leads and see where it leads with the arena and see where it goes. But this is a team that, obviously has made the right steps. At some point now you start adding those guys, and you can't make too many mistakes when you're in that situation.
Yeah.
And we'll see right now this year if, adding those guys was the right fit for them,
Yep. I really do feel good about them if you project out a couple of years, but
Yeah.
it's just a little early.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, they're surrounding the youth, which is what this is kind of all about, right? Cooley, Michelli, McBain. They're
Yep.
surrounding the youth with some veteran talent, like Eric
Yep.
mentioned, and that's going to be really important, laying a foundation now for the future.
Yep. You can do Nashville really quick as well, because Nashville is in a really weird spot, and I don't know what they're doing. Look, Philip Forsberg, legit guy. That's a top line guy for you. Ryan O'Reilly used to be a top line guy. Yeah, I don't know how well he's going to age. Obviously, you love him defensively. He's captain material, will give you all of that hard work, but we've seen the offensive production drop off a bit in the last couple of years. And then Gustav Nyquist exists. Look, I love Gus Nyquist. I've wanted him to join the Avs for years as a second line guy, and maybe now in his career, maybe more like a third line guy. But Nashville's forward core, and this doesn't really show. We talked more about this in our middle six. You talk about the Avs having question marks. The entire Nashville lineup is just one big question mark. Like, I don't know what they're going to do. And I just don't. They don't have that guy, right? They don't have the guy that can go out there and dominate and carry a team to victory. Not to take that away. Look, O'Reilly did it that 1 year in St. Louis. It was great. But for the most part, on the offensive side, O'Reilly's not the guy to show up and completely carry you every single night. Can you be successful without that?
They're missing too many important pieces. I think Ryan O'Reilly had a huge impact on Toronto last year when he joined that group, but he had a supporting cast in the forward core of Matthews and Marner and Nylander. And so not having that in Nashville, since all of that has been shipped out, I have the same question. Do they have a second and third line? And right now their fourth line is penciled to be Kiefer Sherwood. That isn't to demerit Sherwood, but we talk about a lot of question marks for the Avs and their bottom six.
Yep.
This is almost the entirety of the forward group, including the top line, because that just doesn't seem like an adequate winger in Nyquist to be a top line player, in my opinion. I still think that Ryan O'Reilly has an it factor to his game, but it hasn't been so much production. It's been the other qualities that he brings about. And for that reason, then he needs a supporting cast that is going to help offensively. And I think that is where Nashville just hasn't answered that question. I think Ryan O'Reilly, too, has had some questions surrounding health and playing a complete season, and that has harmed some of the projection for his points pace, because I don't think it's been bad. I think he can hang on a top line, and he has those leadership qualities that are invaluable to a team. There's just not enough support around him for it to make the difference that I think Nashville needs.
To me, it's similar to Gabe Landeskog, right? Can play on that top line, plays a very important role on the team, but if that guy's your top scorer, you're in trouble.
I agree. I'm a big Ryan fan. I am. I love the kid, love the player. Brings a lot to a team. I'll use the same term as I used earlier. I don't know what his stage of his career right now, if he's a driver. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think he's a driver. I mean, would I take him on my team? Absolutely. Not a driver right now at this time. And Forsberg, I'm a big fan. But at some point, you gotta take that next
He is
step
what
too.
he is at this point, right? He's established as a 60 to 70 point guy.
That's what he is. A good player, but then you got to do it at the right times too. So it's not like he's really gone deep in the playoffs over his career. And it's it's not an individual sport. It's a team sport. But when you're supposedly the main guy, you got to carry them. You got to make guys better around you. And Nyquist, like you said, I mean, I'm not laughing. I'm saying it's just, who knows, right? Who knows how this is going to turn out. So you're looking at this, and you're going to play against the Nashville Predators, and that's your top line, then hey, we're in for a dogfight tonight, guys. You know what I mean? I don't think it's a 9-8 game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we might have to go win 2-1 or 1-0.
for sure.
Because Ryan's going to make you grind. And obviously they got good goaltending in Saros. And they still got Roman Josi, right? You know what I mean? But he's not on the on the forwards. I think their forwards are very, stale, so to speak, a little bit. Someone's going to have to step up. I'm not sure who it's going to be. But, yeah, I mean, that's... David's stepping aside, and then Barry Trott's taking over, and obviously there'll be a little bit of a different vision, right? A little something different there. But
you talk about someone who wants to win 2-1 every game, Barry Trotz.
Yeah, and then Bruno's a little different. Bruno's all
he wants to play some offense.
Bruno wants to play offense, and great power play guy, and it'll be interesting. So it'll be a good mix, I think. I wouldn't. Throw them down the gutter. I think they're going to be, fine. But they're going to be a tough team to play against, because Barry Trotz demands that. And I know Bruno does that too, so Andrew Burnett. So I think they'll be very good on the special. And don't forget Danny Heino, former Avalanche, right? He's running their PK there. Great kid.
The FBI officer himself.
Yeah, there you go. So, somewhere they can muster up some stuff, It's just not one of those teams that you're like, oh, boy, you got to be careful, though. They have McKinnon.
It's a team that's value is set up strangely in general. Don't get me wrong, $18 million is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But they're spending so little on the rest of their forward core. They're going to have 6 forwards this year making under $1 million in their starting lineup, compared to a team like the Avs who will have 8 or 9 making over $1 million. And as you kind of mentioned, a lot of that money is getting spent on their defense and Roman Josi and Ryan McDonough down there.
Yeah.
But I look at that and I just go, well, the Avs defense is just better, and the Avs are spending less on their defense, and they're spending more on their top line. And I just don't see how the math adds up for Nashville. I really don't. Anyway, on that note, we are brought to you by the folks over at DraftKings Sportsbook. You can go over there today, use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account, and you can get $200 in bonus bets when you bet $1 on college football. You might want to take some of that money and bet it on CU. Obviously, the big win last weekend. I don't even know who they're playing. Oh, they're playing Nebraska this week. So that's like free money betting on CU. They're going to beat Nebraska. That happens literally every time they play. So go bet on that. You can go bet on a bunch of other stuff. Once you put the $1 down on any college football game, the $200 in bonus bets can go wherever you want. You can put a bet down on the Avs. You can go put a bet down on Chicago not making the playoffs. Don't think you'll get very good odds on that bet, but you can put it down if you want. Wherever you want to go with DraftKings Sportsbook, you can make your bets. Head on over to DraftKingsSportsbook.com today. Sign up with that DNVR code to get the $200 in bonus bets after you place your $1 bet in college football. Excuse me. And then, of course, you must be in Colorado, must be 21 or older. Other terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. See DraftKings.com/football terms for more details. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER today, and the bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Then, when you win some money from DraftKings, take that money and head over to Illegal Pete's. You can get over to Illegal Pete's, 11 different locations here in Colorado. Delicious burritos. You cannot go wrong with an Illegal Pete's burrito. We get them all the time. I had my buddy ordering them the other day as we were hanging out, and he's like, yeah, I just prefer these over Chipotle. It's just the reality of an Illegal Pete's burrito. They're just better. So go check them out. They also have a great happy hour from 3 to 8 p.m., so you can get your margaritas on. One just a couple blocks from the DNVR bar. Great place to pregame if you're coming to hang out at the bar for a football game or something like that. Go check out your Illegal Pete's location today. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. We can start moving into some of these other teams in the Central. Yeah, which I trust you. All right, we're going to the top of the Central here. Dallas Stars. This one it's kind of a collision of two things. You have on the younger side, on the up and coming, Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz. both getting paid well. And then you have Jamie Benn getting paid more than all of them on the latter half of his career. The Stars were the winners of our middle six value show. We think they had the best middle six of the group. Are they up at the top with his top six too, or do you think it's not quite there yet?
I really don't want to admit this, but I actually think they are extracting some of the most value again in the top of the lineup, and it has a lot to do with Jason Robertson's contract, which was just highway robbery. But I think that especially in the regular season, Jason Robertson has more than delivered. And because he is on such a value contract, I even don't think his postseason has been bad. I just think that he expects more of himself. And that's where Dallas, like beyond this conversation, still has some questions, is can they go across the finish line with this current team as it's constructed? Because on paper, it does look fantastic. I do like that top line. I like the way the rest of the forward group lays out, because there's still a Matt Duchene somewhere in there coming off a 56-point season. Is he on a third line after a 56-point season? He might be, given just how well organized this forward group is. Looking at next year, there's still a Tyler Seguin after a 50-point season, I think a 49-point season before that. He might not be the player that he once was, but that's production that Colorado would certainly like to have on a second or a third line that we're not certain they're going to get from each player too in their own middle six. And so in looking at these things, it's not to get too high on Dallas, but they do look really good.
I agree. And the viewer said he's scary. I mean, they're scary. I agree. I think this is a scary team this year. This is a team I don't like. On being here in the 90s, we didn't like each other. The Red Wings, sure, but Dallas is a team that. But I have to agree. Looking at that screen, looking at what you guys did like last week or a couple, maybe a few weeks ago. Middle six, right? Value and all that stuff. That's a good team. Robertson, I mean, boy, he's a superstar. And I really like best name in hockey, Rupe Hintz. It doesn't get better than that, right? I mean, this is a good player. I mean, I really enjoy him. And Jamie Benn, give him credit. He had a good year last year, obviously. And, he's their leader, he's their captain, and he's a big body there. And, I mean, they got that.
As long as he stops falling on people.
Yeah. And then they got that superstar on D, right? In Heiskanen.
He's
have
for
Makar,
real.
Absolutely. He's for real. And then one of the best goalies, and I'm a big Jake Conger fan. I do believe
this is how I know we picked the right guy to join the show.
We like Ottinger too.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he's going to win a Vezina here in the next couple seasons. Hey, listen, I'm a big fan. I've seen him do things these last couple years. Now, if I go back to like 4 years ago, watching him play like in the Myers, I'm like, woof. I'm like, wow, that's a tough pick they got there. You know what I mean? And and then you start. Well, I mean, you got to give him credit. Like it's not always easy to leave college and jump into pros. And he had a tough start. And then next thing you know, he's very dominant right now, and his progression's been outstanding. And this guy is a leader on their team. He's going to be one of their best players. And you look at that line there, they have that star power. They have that, Robertson is their McKinnon, right? He's their Anthony. He's a guy that can take over a game, and very smooth, by the way, too. And then you would have never know he's like 6'3" or whatever. He's
not small.
He's not a small guy. I always thought of him like as a smaller guy, and I think his brother's a bit smaller.
Still plays kind of small.
Yeah, I know he does. But he's so silky and smooth, and he's got some confidence, right? This guy plays with confidence, fun to watch. And again, I don't like talking about the Stars like that, but it's they're going to be, I think, in the West, they're going to be a team you're going to see at the top there. I think Jim Nill does a great job. I think he's got this team where he always wanted to have it. He's got that Detroit Red Wings background, right? You know what I mean? Obviously, he worked there for so many years, but I think he's done a good job. And this is a team that's going to be at the top of the standings, and I do believe you want to be at the top of the standings. Usually, you need some firepower on your top line, and as we just saw in the graphic, they do have firepower.
Is J-Rob there? Has he experienced enough losing yet? Is he ready to win, or is he still a little raw?
You Robertson, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't know his personality. It's hard to judge, because we don't see those guys every day. But he looks to me like to be more on the quiet side of things, right?
I
You know what
agree, yeah.
And I think that's why to have a Ben next to him. Ben looks to have a pretty big mouth, and you know what I mean. Like
Yep.
you're a leader. I mean, you're a captain. Usually, you're able to speak. I'm not that Robertson doesn't speak, but yeah, I mean, can he take over? You would think that this guy can do even better than last year. You know what I mean? Because he is just hitting this prime, right?
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? He's what is he, 23 or
Something like that.
something
yeah.
like that. You know, so you would think he can repeat that and even do better than last year. So I think he's one of those next superstars in the league that everybody talks about. Yeah.
All right. Well, Avs got to figure out a way to beat that. Let's go to their other hated team in Minnesota.
While she's loading it, I think the other thing that Dallas has to their advantage is beyond just the high skill upside of production, they have a mix of different types of players. The veteran presence of a
Yep.
Jamie Benn and a Pavelski type,
Yep.
but they also have a little bit of sandpaper in their depth in Mason Marchment. I know that people have mixed feelings about him, but the production was still there for a depth player at 31 points. Like, we are looking to Logan O'Connor, like we would also like for you to have 31 points.
If
And he's
Logan
close.
O'Connor gets 31 points, we're over the moon, I think.
He had
But-
26 points. Gustav Nyquist had 27.
Yep.
And we were talking about him in a top line role. I think that's where, though, the balance of Dallas is
Yeah.
observed in the types of players that they have, even in their depth. Ty Dellandrea, another up-and-coming player
Yep.
that I think
Yep.
they can get excited about in the forward group as well. Maybe the graphic is ready.
No Wild. I've got Jets.
Did the Wild one not make it? Great.
That's interesting. I was excited to talk about Boldy.
I mean, we can talk
Oh,
about
we
it
can talk
without
about
without the graphic. Yeah. I don't know. It's really hard for me to judge teams like the Wild when your best player is a winger in Kaprizov. You have to build a very specific way. And don't get me wrong, Matt Boldy has come in there and been great.
Yeah.
But it's just, as you're saying, it's so hard to be a driver from the wing.
It is, and he is outstanding.
He's an unbelievable
it's
player.
awesome. You'd love to have him on your team, and I think they've been in a tough situation,
For
with
sure,
the
with the
buyouts,
buyouts,
right?
yep,
You know, Suter and Parisi. Billy's Guerin, I'm a fan. Not a guy that was fun to play against. I think he's done a good job. You know, I think he learned the ropes in Pittsburgh and how to do things. And I think he's a confident guy. He's a guy that's not. He's got a personality, that's for sure. And he's trying to translate that to their team. And I think they've moved on from the Zuckers the last couple of years. And guys that have been there really didn't. You know, their problem is a little bit like the Avs a couple of years ago, right? They can't get out of the first round, right?
Yeah.
They make the playoffs, but they don't get out. So I think that's a little frustrating for them. And you're right. You know, Kaprizov's on the wing, and Matt Boldy, I'm a big fan. Sky's the limit for him, but is he there yet? Maybe not. You know what I mean? And you got to remember, when you're a top line guy, like you're playing against the best, like usually defenseman on the other
He gets
team.
McKinnon five times a night,
Or you're
five times a year.
you're going
yeah.
head to head against, a
Yeah.
superstar like McKinnon. I mean, there's only one biscuit on the ice, right? So you're chasing it, right? So at some point, if you don't have the biscuit, it's tough.
Yeah.
So if you're playing top line minutes, it's not easy.
I believe it.
It's easy. I mean, it's easy to go in the third, fourth line, and if you have like a guy like Nate that double shifts or whatever,
Sure.
and you should be able to produce on the fourth line, like you know what I mean? Because you're playing against fifth, sixth Ds, and usually fourth lines, and especially at home because you don't have the matchup. But for guys like Boldy to see, like get out there and be a first line guy all year long and to play every night against Makar, Hedman, or the top end guys is a big difference than to play against a call up because there's injuries and so
No doubt.
So you got to be ready for that. You got to be ready mentally to challenge for that. I think the Wild is just, I don't know, like I think they're trying to do the right thing and they're trying their best to piece it together, but I don't think they're a threat.
I think unlike Arizona, who's been able to make moves that are a step in the right direction, Minnesota has been imprisoned by cap hell, and they've been very limited in what they've been able to make changes to their team. And I think they are trying to make the right moves, but it's been really difficult for them. I think Gustafsson was a great choice to sort of address goaltending for Minnesota. So I'm excited for that. I'm a little uncertain about Eriksson Ek's health after the end of this last year and hope that he can return to the same player that he was prior to getting injured. But that's always such an uncertainty. I won't put that on him, though, necessarily. Like, he could be fully healthy come the start of the season, and I hope that's the case. But it's still just a team that I don't think has done enough to fully move the needle, like a St. Louis, who I'm sure we'll talk about as well. It just isn't quite there yet for me. I do like the promise of a young player like Boldy, though. But in the same conversation, when we talk about Bedard, that is a lot of pressure for a young player to sort of be someone that they look to drive. And I don't think Boldy can do that. I don't know if Eriksson Ek is healthy. And Kaprizov, he is what he is, which is a superstar. But he
can do it.
It's just... It's like the Ryan O'Reilly and Nashville conversation.
Right.
They need a little bit more in their supporting cast, and that's where I'm at with Minnesota.
And they just can't.
They still have a terrific defense, too. But, when we're talking solely about top line, that's where I think Minnesota has more to give.
$14 million worth of better forwards that they can't buy right now. And it really does feel like Minnesota is just going to be stuck in that, hey, we can make the playoffs middle until they get through these buyouts, and then we'll see. All right. Winnipeg or St. Louis? What should we do? Tiff says Winnipeg.
Winnipeg.
This team still has a good top line. These are three really good players in the NHL. Obviously, Ehlers had some injury trouble last year. But I genuinely don't know if two of these three guys will be here come the trade deadline. So...
Shifley's gone.
Yeah, I'm looking at this top line. I'm saying, is every other team in the league going, boy, what would it cost to get one of these guys more than, hey, how well have they built this team? Shifley, if he's not gone at the deadline, he's almost certainly gone in the offseason. So Winnipeg has some decisions to make here. I do want to give them credit for building a good top end, though. I think they did a good job of that. It just didn't work out. Why?
I mean, I'll jump in there. I mean, I think it's the same thing. I think it's been a little stale. I mean, we need AJ here on this one. But
he would know.
Yeah, I just feel it's been a little stale in the last, with their core. Yep. You know what I mean? It's just been a little stale. They've had some good seasons, and then they get a little bit of success in the playoffs, and then, again, a little bit of success, and then it's not really going anywhere. And now you see, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but Hellebuck, there was that rumor. That he's
I think he's putting words in his mouth.
I'm not staying there, or I'm going to test the free agent market. And it doesn't seem like a group that's very cohesive, all the way through with their coaching staff to management. Chevy does a good job. He's done a great job. He's a great hockey guy. And then, Bonus came in last year, right? And then, I don't know, they just don't seem to be on the same page. I'm talking about the players and where this is going and their superstar goalie. And
I did not think you were going to be the vibes guy.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
You're just Winnipeg's all vibes. Yeah. They're bad ones.
There's some bad vibes.
Not some good vibes to me. I don't know, as a fan, it's just not good vibes. Shifley, and like you said, is he gone? Is he gone?
Yeah.
Probably. I'm a big Connor fan, though. I got to be honest with you. He's got he just looks like a hockey player with that hair. You know what I mean?
You're all about the flow.
You know what I mean? The flow is hey, he looks like, you know what I mean? But he gets it done. What a good player, man, smart player. And I mean, I'm impressed by him. You know what I mean? If you're plays in Winnipeg, watch a lot of Winnipeg games, and you happen to watch one of these games, watch this guy. He's a solid player. I'm a fan, and I just, I don't know. I think there'll be some distractions there with Shifley. I think there'll be some. Who knows? And Ehlers is a good player as well. We saw that. He's he complements higher end guys, and good player when healthy, and smart two-way guy. But I think, it's just a team that can they really go with with that line there, I don't think so.
No.
I would say
Yeah.
no. That would be a no for me.
I think there's a little bit of distraction, like you said, in the uncertainty surrounding players like Scheifele and Hellebuck. And I think that players like that were a big reason why they were able to sneak into the playoffs last year. And that's where I have some concern about their ability to do it again, because there are still pieces. Like, I really, in losing PLD, I like the addition of Velarde, Iafallo.
Yeah.
And so that sort of goes into the depth conversation. I think they keep on Nino Niederreiter after a 41-point season. That's great depth, right? So, like, beyond just the top line, there are still some important pieces here. And then obviously another year, potentially, of Hellebuck in net is also such a strength for the Jets. But beyond this year, and even inside of it, depending on if players do jump shift and moves are happening, I don't know about the longevity of it all. Like, I just don't think past this year they have some decisions to make. They're going to have to replenish even more, because I have a feeling that they're going to lose some of what they currently have, and it was so much of their success last year.
Yeah, I mean, look, teams get driven from the top, right? And the message from the top guys in Winnipeg right now is, I don't want to be here.
Which is
So-
bad.
Exactly.
Hard to win when that's the message.
Did you think it got better last year? I thought it seemed like a more cohesive group from the year before.
Yeah, until the offseason happened.
Until the offseason happened, and you're absolutely right. I take it all back. It just felt like, even when they came into town, being in that room, it felt like, oh, this isn't so bad. This
Yeah,
seems like a lively, jolly
it seemed
bunch.
fine, and then everyone was like, I'm done. When they hit the offseason,
Vibes bad.
vibes bad. Confirmed.
Yeah, and I think it's hard. And I'm a fan of Velarde. I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I like him. I like where he came from with his back injuries, and this guy worked hard to get on top of his game and to have a success. And then now you walk into a room like that, same thing. It's like, really, like, it's weird. Oh, these guys don't seem to want to be here. Is this true? Not true? I don't know. It's just a weird. It's a
tough.
weird feeling. I think. And he's a young man and trying to forge a career. And I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe I'm reading too much into it. I just don't like what I see.
I'll take your word for it. You're the one who's been in the front office.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I don't know.
We have St. Louis, and then we have the big teams after that. So here's the thing. I actually really like St. Louis's top line. I don't think they have a true superstar. They don't have a Jameson Robertson. They don't have a Nathan McKinnon. But at least in the regular season, Robert Thomas has been extremely productive for them. Obviously, Jordan Kyrie's breakout has been maybe a bit unexpected, but one that has worked well for St. Louis. And then Buchnevich is a player I've always really, really liked. I think he's probably a little over his head on a top line, but has been productive. You're getting good value on that contract. The problem is they're paying $22 million for three guys that are really good but not great. And then the rest of their lineup is kind of all over the place. Obviously, their defense eating up a ton of their money. In the same way, it's hard for Winnipeg, where if they have guys at the top that don't want to be here, I don't know that they have guys at the top that are strong enough to carry them where they need to go.
I've made St. Louis the object of my bullying a lot this season. I really like that line. It, like, in the same way that Colorado, we're talking about, maybe Arturi Lekkonen's on the top line, and maybe Mikko Rantanen elevates the second line at points that season. I could see something similar with St. Louis, but the problem is it's not interchangeable with players like a Rantanen.
Yep.
I'd say Lekkonen is in the caliber of Buchnevich, and I think Kyrie's a step above that a little bit, Thomas as well, but they also have a little bit to live up to in the contract. So they just signed that. They had kind of a disappointing year coming off of that, in my opinion. So they have some room to then live up to that contract a little bit better, especially assuming the top line role full time, because they're kind of the only people who can. Like, I still think Braden Shen's a fine player, kind of on the second line role off of a 65-point season. I think Saad too, like what we saw in Colorado, we really liked that player and would have liked to have him still in Colorado now. That's not bad, but Kevin Hayes doesn't fully move the needle for me. I think he's,
agree.
again, a fine, maybe like middle six player. I think that's a fine addition, but I don't believe in Kasperi Kapanen. I think the one thing I will give them some credit for is, in the same vein that the Avs are taking a chance on Drouin, Rana is a player that
Sure.
I think could elevate their forward group in a necessary way. But on the whole, it's just not jumping off the page at me. There isn't, like you said, a superstar. There are good players at the top in Thomas and Kyrou, but beyond that, I think they need a little bit more. They would need like a Ryan O'Reilly type. That would be so much of a better fit. It's funny, I say that. I didn't even mean to put him in the St. Louis conversation. I'm just thinking about how...
You can come back.
Yeah, it's funny. That's exactly the type of player that they need, and they don't have. So obviously, to them, there's greater problems beyond this.
Well, it's a good shout out though, because between O'Reilly and Tarasenko, they had to rebuild a good portion of their top six, if not their top
And they
line.
added Kevin Hayes, who was fine, but it's just like that didn't replenish what they needed.
Yeah, I look at this top line and I think, look, if that was your second line, it might be the best second line in the league.
It'd be fantastic.
But you're paying them to be a top line, and are they the 15th best top line in the league? I don't know that they can really live up to being a true top line.
I agree, because here's where it lies for me. Like, they win a Stanley Cup in St. Louis, right? Mm-hmm. And then obviously when you win, usually you get stripped down a little bit, and that's kind of what's happened, right?
Yep.
Like you said, Brian and Tarasenko, and it's always easy to play second fiddle. Like, it's always easy to be
when you're not in the spotlight.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's right. And then now you sign those guys to big tickets. Robert Thomas, $8 million a year, whatever it is. Good player, but you got to give more. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And same with Kyrou. Kyrou, if you go back to his opportunity a couple years ago here, I think the first game of the season, was that the weird season with with COVID and everything.
Sure.
I want to say St. Louis was in town here. The first game of the season, he was a healthy scratch, and then someone tested positive for COVID. I don't remember who. And then he ended up playing like at the last minute, scored 2 goals that night. He seized the opportunity.
Never looked back. Yeah.
Never looked back. Now he's become one of those players that they thought they had. And you got to remember, this guy had to go play in the minors. I watched him in the minors. I'm like, I don't know. Like, you really don't know. Like, I don't see it. You know what I mean? And this is a guy that ends up proving you wrong. You know what I mean? Which all of a sudden he's got his spot. Then he makes the money. And then comes the pressure of the money. I don't care what people say. There's pressure. And then now you're playing against top-hand guys. Now and then you won, and then the O'Reillys, the cushion is gone, right? The safety valve is gone. Now you got to go play, and for me, for that money, you got to produce more than 65 points. You got to give more, and you got to bring your team to the playoffs. And I just feel that, go back to Paul Stastny, like. Paul had a strong start here, and you're I don't want to the word hide, but you're hiding behind Joe Sakic.
Sure.
So Joe Sakic's getting the spotlight against the other teams, and then it's kind of, and then all of a sudden you signed that big contract, and then you
were supposed to be that guy.
Then you're that guy, and I'm not saying Paul never was, but I'm saying somewhere somehow he wasn't, and that's not to diminish Paul's career. That's not what I'm saying, but. He did end up winning Stanley Cups and being the guy like Nate McKinnon is, what I mean? Like, or whatever it is.
Yep.
So I think St. Louis is in that jam right now where, those guys are going to have to, the 3 guys we saw on the screen, they're going to have to step up. Even if it's Bushnev, I agree with you. He's not, he's probably not a first line guy, but he's a good player and he did produce for what he is. But now I think it's, those, especially the 2 guys, Kyrou and Thomas, if that's your team, then you got to lead your team.
They've got to be the guys.
That's right.
Yep. All right. All these top line players trying to get the money that they deserve. If you want to get the money you deserve, call Bacchus and Schenker 222-2222 today. Go over to coloradolaw.net if you'd rather do it online. If you've been in any situation where you've been injured and it's not your fault, if it was a car accident, even if you weren't driving, it was a rideshare thing, or if you've been injured at work, if you're downtown and got run over by a scooter like is happening to everyone these days, you can call Bacchus and Schenker. They'll give you a free consultation. If they think you have a case, they will take your case on for nothing. You do not pay for anything until you win your case. They're just trying to get you the money you deserve. They've won over $1 billion for their clients here in Colorado over the last 25 years or so. So they're very good at getting you that money. Again, call the 2 number or go to coloradolaw.net today to get your free consultation with Bacchus and Schenker. And then also brought to you by the folks over at My Phone is Loading.
Shady Rays.
Yeah, thank you. Shady Rays. Look, I was not a sunglasses guy for a lot of my life. I didn't like them, didn't wear them. And then we got sponsored by Shady Rays. And
Actively
now,
stared at the sun.
yeah, I just dealt with it. Went blind. It was fine.
No.
Not a big deal. But now I wear my Shady Rays every day when I walk my dog. So it's a good deal. Let me tell you, I much prefer this version than the version of me slowly going blind. It's significantly better. They make a great product. Lots of people love them. 5 stars by over 250,000 people. Tons of different designs. Something that everybody will like. And when you use code DNVR, when you purchase 2 pairs or more, you get 50% off your entire order. That's essentially like buy one and get one free. Go check them out if you haven't. ShadyRays.com. And if you don't like your pair, you break them, you lose them. In the first 30 days, they'll replace them absolutely for free. So go try them out. Check them out at ShadyRays.com. Or they have a brick and mortar in the Park Meadows Mall. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. Let's get into the big 3 here. Let's start with Tampa's. Yeah, we'll get to Vegas too. I think Vegas is an interesting one. Tampa, it's pretty hard to argue with what they have here. Kucherov, fantastic, has been at the top of the league for a long time now. Point has fully come into his own as a true top-line guy. And I get it. This is one where it's like Colorado. You will see these guys rotate down to a second line, but these are Lightning's top producers. Stamkos continues to find the fountain of youth here and produce like a madman. I will say they are paying a lot of money to these 3 players, so they absolutely have to get this production out of them. How much longer can Tampa keep doing this?
It's interesting because some of why they've been able to afford being able to keep doing this is finding great value contracts for their depth, which has been good. They've usually capitalized on that very well. But in now paying Hagel and Cirelli also big money, they're investing a lot of money in the top of their lineup, and it's going to make then finding those value contracts for the bottom of it so much more difficult because I really like the player that Hagel has ascended to in Tampa. And Cirelli, coming off of shoulder surgery is still also a great two-way player that in the same way that I talked about the mix of players in Dallas, Tampa does have that as well. They have that in the obvious high skill upside in the production that they're getting from their top line, but they have players like Cirelli who bring more than just production as well to the table. I still really like where Tampa is situated, but it's starting to look like it'll be much more difficult to repeat the level of success they've had because they are starting to invest term and big money in the top of their lineup, as they should. That's not a criticism.
Totally.
You look at that production, and that is worth paying for.
Yeah.
But that is where they start to get a little bit of a challenge in how they round out the bottom of that lineup.
I like lineups that are top heavy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If you look at the Avs, I'm a fan of the lineup. If you look at Tampa, I'm a fan of the lineup, and I tell you why. Now, can they keep this up? I don't know. But what I do know is if you look at the last 5 Stanley Cup finalists,
A lot of top-heavy teams there, yeah.
pretty top heavy teams, right? I mean, that's
With incredible depth.
You're not
with that.
wrong,
No, that's right.
but-
No, and hey, listen, I'm a depth guy. Like hey, you know what I mean? Like yes for the depth, right? But you can't win without superstars. I'm convinced. You know what I mean? And now it's starting to see, can you win without a superstar goalie? Well, I mean, there's starting to be that trend a little bit. I mean, with the Avs with Kemper, and I don't believe he's a superstar goalie, but I do believe he was good. You know what I mean? Like
that's arguably the deepest team in the last 20 years.
that's the
what
point.
it takes to win without a superstar
it's like
goalie.
the Wings back then
Right.
winning. You know what I mean? And, you can make that argument about Osgood, or like him not. He's got the numbers, but a lot of people were saying, can you win with Osgood? Then they finally did, right? Then, it takes a lot of pressure off himself there, but, good for him. But I just think that you do need, and I agree with you, the depth, and, and that's what made them, right? With those Goudreau and those trades, and you overpay, but you go for it. But somewhere, those guys help you win when I think that the superstars make you win. You know what I mean? And if you have the good combo, you're pretty lethal. And that's why those guys went 3 years in a row. That's why the Avs are going to get back to it this year, in my mind,
Look, it doesn't matter how good your depth is if your top line's -2 every night, right? Like
100%. And those guys have to buy in. And you got guys that have bought in over there, right? The Stamkos, the Braden Point. Braden Point plays hockey the right way. I mean, he gets 95 points a year. He's this high. And, you know what I mean? He'll play through anything. And you're like, wow, this guy's so good, right? I mean, how'd they find this guy? You know what I mean? And he was a late pick, right? I don't remember what he was, but he was a late
rounder, yeah.
Late rounder. And when you hit on those guys, like, and then Stamkos is your leader and he's your captain, and everybody falls into place with the Killorns and like Cirelli. I mean, that's a guy that's won in juniors, and obviously is he going to price himself out one day? Maybe, because he's that good, right? I mean, that's somewhere. He's not a superstar, but he's a guy you would overpay, but he can only work in so many places. We'll see if he can still work in Tampa.
He can come work in Colorado if they want to give him away.
Well, exactly. And everybody's been saying Killorn is, he's gone out of Tampa last week, so we all know what happened and everything. But it's he was still there, and then he still found himself with a lot of money in Anaheim, right? I mean, that's a lot of money. So guys like that are valuable. I agree with Megan. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you got to have the right mix, But without superstars, it's tough to get there. You know what I mean? It's such a fine line with this league, and I believe that Tampa's had it, but we'll see how much. And then they got the big cat in net. I'm a big fan. Obviously that's he's
best goaltender of this generation.
He is the best for me. So it's kind of and then you got the big guy Edmund that obviously can, again, like we talked about Makar yesterday, like 30 minutes a night. Well, this is a guy that 30 minutes a night. It's pretty tough to get to the other team's net. This guy's a superstar.
So it's as easy as spend all your money on good players.
Yeah.
Well, especially when they can continue to find pretty good value. Like
that's it.
They're
That's
hoping
fair.
Tanner
That's
Jeannot will have
that
a good
breakout,
year, and he still can. So
Which one's that? Who's that?
Tanner Jeannot
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Nashville.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
He still can.
Yep.
And so that's where they could get a lot of value. And then Nick Paul, another that I'm not here to say that Tampa doesn't have the depth going into next year. They still have that possibility as well. So another pretty well-rounded team that looks very good on paper and has executed as well too. They have the track record of actually going out and doing these things successfully. So another very good team on paper.
Well coached.
Oh yeah,
Like,
Cooper's amazing.
This guy can
coached.
talk.
I respect him so much.
And
Cooper.
Brisebois does a good job. I mean, I like that he goes for it. I mean, he goes for whatever he feels. If he feels it's overpaying, then it doesn't matter because he's showing his locker room that he's trying to win, and I love that. I think that's a big thing he brings to his team.
Well, how about a team that's willing to spend well beyond the cap ceiling in Vegas? Can't say they don't pay their players. That's for sure. Look, Jack Eichel makes this top line, right? He was their guy. They went out and got him, and obviously it all came together for them last year. Mark Jusseau's a solid piece. I don't know that he's really a true top line guy, kind of similar to that Buchnevich conversation. But you have this weird situation with Mark Stone where when he's in the lineup, he's absolutely that good, but you're going to get 30 regular season games out of him a year, maybe? Is it worth it for Vegas to just keep going forward like this? Can they just say, hey, we'll have Stone for the playoffs and it'll be fine?
They go for it, right? Like you said, I mean, they go for it. And I remember it being a couple years ago when they were in the Erik Karlsson a sweepstake, and then for some reason they didn't get it. And I remember the owner not being very satisfied about that. Like, hey, we go for it, and then. Obviously, then the next few years, it looked like they were going after the new toy, right? You know what I mean? Which obviously worked out for them.
Yeah.
But it was Pacioretty, or it was Peter Angelo, or then it was Eichel, or you know what I mean? So, and the guys took it wrong a little bit there. Players on the team are the fans, you know what I mean? Where they fell in love with their misfits. They fell in love with that, that team, the inaugural season, and the tragedy, and it was just something that was so crazy and. The people fell in love with them, identified with them, and it was a love affair. And then obviously you only have a few left, right, of the misfits. And if you look at that graphic, there, Marchessault's there. He's there for a reason. I think he's a little bit like Claude Lemieux. I'm gonna say in a sense that he's not afraid to speak his mind, and he's not. Sometimes you got to live with him, in a season, like you're saying. He might not be a first line guy, but I'll tell you one thing: you want a clutch guy. There's a reason they kept him, and maybe they wanted to get rid of him at some point, and they didn't. It fell through, but. I mean, this guy won the Conn Smythe, right?
Yep.
Claude won the Conn Smythe. Those guys show up in the playoffs. They show up at the right time, and boy, oh boy, was he clutch in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then obviously, I think took a lot of pressure away from a guy like Eichel, right? Like we talked about, never been in the playoffs, and then now here he is, and with all the shenanigans from the couple years before with Buffalo and that trade, and Mark Stone is a legit number one, like you said. He's just got to be healthy, and again, that's another guy they went and got, Mark Stone, right? You know what I mean? Like, let's go after the.
There's always the next guy they go out and get. Yeah.
This guy's a leader. He plays a lot like Ryan, right? O'Reilly. Like he steals puck. No, I've never seen a guy like with that. His knob is as big as this thing, and it's like, how can you hold on to a stick? And he just knocks pucks down and steals pucks like Ryan does. I mean, this guy plays hockey the right way, and he's their ultimate leader. And I think that it took a lot of pressure away from Eichel. Like, he doesn't have to be the guy, to be the vocal guy. And then Marchessault he's not afraid to talk, and he's got that confidence, that swag, and I think that's why it was a good mix, for those two to be together. Obviously, when they added Barbashev, that was. I wanted the Avs to get Barbashev. I kept saying, God, you gotta find a way to get Barbashev, and this is another guy, that you probably have to overpay now, right? You know what I mean? But he brings it when he has to bring it in the playoffs, and this is a guy you're talking about the depth, and you win. It helps you win. You know what I mean? And those are exactly what he did in St. Louis, exactly what he did in Vegas.
Go ahead.
And Barbashev, he elevated what he had done from St. Louis to Vegas. It was such a good fit for him. He has, a similar AAV to Marchessault in what they extended him for, as they should have, because Barbashev had such a great impact on them, not only in contributing production, but the sandpaper side of his game. That's honestly true, I think, of a lot of Vegas's forward group too. And then the great year that Chandler Stevenson had as well is equally a part of this conversation, like could be an interchangeable piece on that top line as well. You look at what Mark Stone does in the playoffs, and you ask, can they afford to have him miss so much of the regular season? And his 24 points in 22 games for the playoffs is exactly why they can, because they can be competitive enough in the regular season to be playoff contenders. They get across that finish line, honestly, pretty handily too, because they also experienced different injuries throughout the regular season, and it was fine. I think that having Stone be the player that he can be in the playoffs is why they are getting tremendous value from their top line. And Eichel, in his playoff performance specifically, made me such a believer. I wasn't quite sure if Vegas had made the right call, if he had the star power enough that they needed for the top line. And I really do believe in that now in Eichel for Vegas. This is still a scary team too. There's a reason these teams were saved for the end of this podcast, and it's because beyond just the top line, they're competitive in other places.
Chandler Stevenson is their ace in the hole, really.
I don't know if Aiden Hill can repeat the
That's
performance
their big
in
question
net.
mark,
It's
for
a
sure.
huge question mark, but who am I to judge? The Avs took a huge gamble on Georgiev,
and it worked.
So far, it has really paid off. So who am I to judge that kind of a risk? Avs are taking a couple different chances on players this year as well. Now, goaltending's a really different position to take a risk on, but he definitely had a playoff performance that supports a little bit of that risk as well. So Vegas is another team that I think is going to pose a problem in the West.
Love their decor. I love their decor. And then
it's a little old for me, but
yeah, is it all right? That's all right. But it was for me, Hagen, White Cloud is 5'6".
Yeah, their depth is very good. I agree with that.
And then and I love the fact that you both touched on Stevenson. For me, that's pro scouting. You know what I mean? You watch a guy, he's going to be available, and he's in Washington, and on the fourth line, you're getting those crappy minutes, and it's tough, and you got to just kind of figure out okay, if we put him in this situation, can he deliver? Wow, this guy's delivered. I mean, you're talking about the last few years, probably one of the best. Small. I'm talking about small trade. You know what I mean? Or was that a trade or waivers? I don't remember. It was one of those two. I mean, it was it was a very small trade if it was, or it might have been waivers. But
either way, a great move.
Either way, it's a great move that's paying off big dividends.
All right, finally, the team you're all here for, the Avs. Look, we've said it a lot. Obviously, their top two lines are super fluid, so guys are going to move around the lineup. But you have McKinnon and Lehkonen who really do play together. Sure, you might see Nichushkin fill that role. Sure, Druin might end up on this line, whatever. But those two at the top are pretty much infallible when it comes to McKinnon and Rantanen. The only guys that really come close in the Central Division for me is Robertson. Maybe Kaprizov, I guess. But those two are just two of the best players, certainly in the Central Division, honestly, the entire league. And then Lehkonen, he does fall into that category of, maybe he's really more of a second liner, but he plays a specific role that the team likes on that top line.
Smart player. I mean, Lehkonen, I'm a fan. Lehkonen, yeah, you're right. I mean, do you consider that? No, but he's a compliment for first-line players. Yep. I don't mind having guys like that with first-line guys like McKinnon because, they know how to play. They know how to, be a safety valve for those guys, right? So maybe these guys can I hate the word cheat, because I don't think you can cheat much in this league and get rewarded. But I think that he helps. I like the firepower. I like the numbers. It is what it is. You're going to have to pay for your superstars. Those guys deliver. Do I think we touched on a little bit yesterday, like, can you split McKinnon and especially this is where you see where Gabe kind of hurts a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Not kind of. He does hurt that he's not. That's not his fault, obviously. But do you split, McKinnon and Rantanen? I think you do. That's me.
I would.
I think Nate's big enough driver to go back to again, I am going back to the older days of the Avs, but Joe Sakic, people tend to forget. Like, he was playing with Hayduk and Tanguay, which was an outstanding line. But before that, for many years, he's playing with Scott Young on the right side, and I love Ducky Young. Great teammate. But again, not a first-line guy, right?
Sure.
You know what I mean? More like a Lehkonen, you know what I mean? Like, reliable guy, great teammate, great shot. And Joe made him better. Yep. You know what I mean? And on the left side, I mean, you had Chris Simon for a while. Then you had like I said, even I played there for a month or so. Then you had Keith Jones and, never like superstars, you know what I mean? And sure. Joe made everybody better. And then Denmarsh playing his off wing there. I'm a big Adam Denmarsh fan, great friend of mine. I love the guy, you know what I mean? And shout out to him. Like, he's one of my all-time favorites. But, not a superstar. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Adam's a rotating cast there for sure.
You know what I mean? And it was a good fit for Joe, So I don't know. I like seeing Lehkonen there. I mean, I don't know who you put there if you switch it up a little bit, but I'm sure that there's gonna be some audition, like you said, with Druin. And again, that was a small. I'll let you talk about that because I don't want to steal your thunder on Druin.
Oh no! I feel like he's actually the Druin
fanboy. I'm probably I'm the Druin guy.
I thought it was Megan.
I'm excited about the chance that they're taking because on the whole, too, this could be of extreme value. Like, say you put Nichushkin on the top line, that then becomes kind of an expensive top line.
I forgot about him.
In Lehkonen's place, I know. It's worth talking about because there's some uncertainty around. Will he play the full length of the season? Can he stay healthy? Because coming off of a year where he had lingering discomfort from his ankle, does that continue to persist? Because even through the lingering discomfort, he is still such a productive player that I am not counting on that being where he falters. I think it's just, will he be available for all 82 games or not?
Sure.
Because I think the production from Nichushkin will continue to be close to a point per game, the same as it was last year. And so if he is on that top line, then that is a pretty expensive top line, but the production is there, certainly.
Yep.
It's there no matter what. Between McKinnon, Rantanen, and some combination of that, it will always be there, which is why I think they can afford to mix and match a little bit, add the heavy forechecking presence of Nichushkin up there alongside his production, or Lehkonen's heavy forechecking presence. That's where it's interesting then is I'm more curious about the second line and how these two operate together because
I agree.
Ryan Johansson probably needs a little support to acclimate to the way that Colorado wants to play, the speed that they want to play at. I think that is where someone like a Rantanen perhaps being alongside Johansson could be especially helpful to elevate that line and sort of baptize Ryan Johansson into what is expected of him in Colorado. Similarly, though, that's where Drouin could add some fun dynamics to the creativity of the playmaking that is happening. I think that he could feed McKinnon on the top line in a way that would probably boost McKinnon's goal scoring production, but also that is going to be contributions that are extremely valuable if Drouin is the guy distributing the puck up there. And so that's where they start to get the value then. The Lehkonen and Drouin contracts are extremely valuable in that top six, even though Nichushkin's might come in a little bit high. And then Ryan Johansson at $4 million because of what Nashville decided to retain.
Ends up being a great deal if he performs.
We were spoiled to see what Nazem Kadri was able to do in that role as the second line centerman. But you can't knock the ways in which Colorado is trying to extract the most value then in how they've constructed this top six. Because no matter who is up there, you have McKinnon and Rantanen, and that's really hard to argue against.
Yep. Perfect way to say it, to be honest. And I would not be surprised, especially in the first month of the season or so, if the Avs are experimenting with the top six, and the second they find something that clicks with Johansson, just staple those two together and go from there.
And Drouin, I'm not saying I'm not a fan. I'm saying that great player. But he's in Tampa. Things didn't go his way, right? And next thing you know, there's a reason for that too. Next thing you know, they go and win championships, and And I'm not saying it's because they got rid of Jonathan Drouin. That's not what I'm saying. Obviously, they went and got Sergachev, and wow, he worked out pretty good for Tampa, not so well for Montreal. But Jonathan is still a good player. But then he has to find his way now to complement maybe a McKinnon like he used to. So you're trying to rekindle that connection, right? But you also got to play the right way too, because the Avs now have learned to play the right way these last couple of years, and that's why they've been successful, and that's why they've been at the summit with the Cup. So you have to be able to play the correct way, which we can have a full
I'm sure we'll do a show about that.
Exactly. There's a way to play to be successful as a team, and there's a way to play to be successful as an individual. And I'm not saying Drouin was that, but he wasn't there in Tampa for those years.
Here's why I'm a believer in Drouin. I don't think Montreal knew what the hell to do with him. They tried him at center. They tried him on the off wing. Obviously, there were issues beyond the rink there. But if those crop up again, then, it's probably not going to be a great season for him here in Colorado. But if he has those things sorted out, the Avs are going to give him every opportunity to be the best version of himself and succeed on the ice. As you said, he comes in here and he does not have to be the guy. He's a complementary player, whether it's next to McKinnon, whether it's next to Johansson, whether it's next to Colton on the third line. He's not going to be the guy at the top of his line that they're asking to be the best player. And I think that's where the opportunity really shines for him.
And it was tough in Montreal.
Yeah.
Because he's from there. I'm from there.
Yeah.
And it's tough to be from
there.
The
media here will be a lot easier to deal with.
It's a lot easier for him to deal with this year. Sorry to cut you off.
No. Cut me off anytime.
No.
Please. It has to happen. We do got to wrap up here, but super quickly, speed rank. Central Division, bottom Chicago, even with Bedard.
Yes.
Ask again if Bedard has changed that. Is Arizona next worst? Maybe Nashville?
Oh, Nashville.
I really think Nashville's in for a disaster of a season. I really do.
Honestly, I actually think they're going to scrape by from good goaltending.
I hope you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong, too. I don't mean scrape by alongside Arizona, I think that's where they could have a little bit of an edge.
Okay, so Arizona in
I
7.
I hate to put Arizona there, but I feel like I have to.
Nashville 6.
Yeah. Yes for me.
Yeah.
And then 5 through 3 is some Minnesota, St. Louis, Winnipeg.
I'm going to go Winnipeg.
Winnipeg 5. Okay.
Winnipeg bottom. I would do. I'm so outspoken about St. Louis, but let me think. Let me think on this more, because we're strictly ranking top line.
Top lines, yes.
I'm sorry, but Kirill Kaprizov.
Yeah,
St. Louis, Minnesota.
Okay, I'm here for
All
it.
right. I agree.
All right, so Winnipeg 5, St. Louis 4, Minnesota 3.
Yeah.
And then Dallas or Avs at 1.
I'm putting Dallas at 1.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
know that might be a hot take that I hope ages poorly, because I hope that Johansson and Drouin, or even Ross Colton if he ends up on the second line. I hope that pays out in a really big way that makes this a different conversation at the end of the year. And we're talking about Avs at number one, no doubt.
If you told me right now, hey, guaranteed Drouin gets 60 points this year, you're putting Avs at 1. But there's just too many question marks there, right?
Right.
I'm going to go 1. Avs 1.
You're taking Avs 1.
I'm
All
go
right.
Dallas
I like
2,
it.
and I'll tell you why. Expectations. I think Dallas will have bigger expectations right now coming into this year. And I think that they might struggle at times with it, and that's why I give the nod to the Avs.
The experience.
Dallas does have that pressure of they need to get over the hump, right?
right.
Yeah.
The Avs have already won the one.
That's right.
I think what we've learned from this show and the Middle Six show is that Dallas, Colorado could be a war of the Titans this year in the Central Division.
Avs villain Pete DeBoer.
Yeah, so of course
There you
it's
go.
always Pete DeBoer. We are going to get out of here for today's show. We are brought to you by Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. You can get yours on tap down here at the bar or find them anywhere in the U.S. with the Breck Beer Locator online at breckbrew.com. And that's not the only Breck alcohol we have. We're also brought to you by Breckenridge Distillery. Go get your Breck Distillery whiskey. It's won a ridiculous amount of awards. It's like 9 years running the best whiskey in whatever the awards are that alcohol do. I don't know what they're called. I'm sorry. It's fantastic whiskey, wins a bunch of awards. They're doing some things with the Broncos as well. You can win sweet tickets to the New Year's Eve game if you hashtag Breckenridge or Broncos Bourbon. Yeah, it's Broncos Bourbon on Instagram. So hashtag that with your favorite pictures of Broncos. They'll narrow that down and they'll select a winner in December. Check them out at BreckenridgeBourbon.com today. We appreciate all y'all hanging out with us. If you did not watch the Middle Six one, go watch that one. It was another great conversation about value and building NHL teams. So go check that one out on this YouTube channel. Like and subscribe if you really want to help us out. That is it for this one. We're doing a mailbag tomorrow. Tweets coming out in an hour or two. If you have questions for Eric, put them on there. We'll answer a bunch of them. And we will see you on the next one.